our focus to some news that we are tracking very closely here at Mirror Now is when you go to a restaurant, you pay for the food you order and the GST as mandated by the government. Additionally, you end up paying service charges, which ranges anything between 10 to as high as 20%. It was optional, but now eating out in the national capital in New Delhi is set to get expensive, as the Delhi High Court has issued an order stating that the service charge will now be termed as staff maintenance, capped at 10%. The court sides with the restaurants, but emphasized the need for transparency, requiring restaurants to clearly state that this charge is not a government levy. Notably, this is an interim order and is applicable only for Federation of Hotels and Restaurants. And to discuss this further, I'm joined by our guest this afternoon. I'm joined by Mr. Vineet Vadva, who's the founder and the CEO of the Feo restaurant and also a member of the NRai. I'm also joined by Mr. Bijon Mishra, who is a consumer rights activist. Good afternoon to both of you, sir. Thank you for taking our time and joining us over here at Mirror Now. Well, my first question will go across to you, Mr. Bijon Mishra. How did you respond to this news when you read about the Delhi High Court having termed the service charge is now going to be called the staff maintenance, capped at 10%? Is this a relief for the consumer, capping off the consumer, the service charge at 10%? Or do you think this service charge, whether at all it's being termed as a staff maintenance or not, should be waived entirely and should be left at the prerogative of the consumer, the customer, whether at all they want to tip the staff concerned, whether at all they want to shell out any money over and beyond what they're consumed?
Yeah, good. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity and inviting me. You see, I strongly feel the Honorable High Court has given a very balanced and very appropriate order, where it has not become a regulation, but it is still a voluntary initiative to be taken by the restaurant associations, where if the consumer is happy to pay a maximum of 10%, for the welfare of the people who are serving them, then they can pay that amount. But it is not mandatory. So what happens is there is a lot of transparency which now comes in. When you say you collect the service charge for the welfare of your employees, so now you have to, in a transparent manner, show that all that money which you collect from the customers in terms of service charge has to go on to their welfare activities. So there can be audits done, there should be audits done, in fact, by the association to ensure that all their members bring about this practice as a voluntary initiative rather than a mandatory initiative, and the customers should be left free to decide whether to pay this amount for their welfare or not. So I feel personally, and I feel as a consumer of this country, happy to tip the people now who serve me in the restaurant, because I know that I am actually directly paying for their welfare. And the restaurant owner is not pocketing that money on the garb of service charge and telling the customers that actually this money is meant for the welfare of the employees. We don't take any money out of this. Now, that accountability and transparency will bring a lot of trust in the management of these associations, because the members should be bound by such kind of directives given by the Honorable High Court. And I do not know whether they will go against it before the Supreme Court or not. But I feel that it's a good move. High Court is setting a good kind of a voluntary standard, or requesting all such associations in our country which are existing today to become more ethical and more transparent and accountable to the consumers who actually pay the money to access the service or the products. And it actually helps in creating a lot of credibility in the system or in the existing laws. So I'm personally very happy. I feel the consumers in the country will also feel happy with this order, and there will be a lot of transparency which will avoid disputes, which will avoid all kinds of unpleasantness in the restaurant while
Of
settling
course,
the
Mr.
bill.
Mishra,
So
while there is a transparency that the Delhi High Court has emphasized upon, but to make it almost mandatory that now 10% is going to be the staff contribution capped at 10%, well, the consumer will still end up bearing the burden for it. And like you were mentioning that we should come to know about how the consumers are going to react, let us go across to my colleague Ishika, who is standing with a few people right now, right outside certain restaurants. And after that, Mr. Badhwa, I will come back to you. Yes, Ishika. We just heard what Mr. Bijon Mishra was saying. He says it's a welcome move. But whether at all the customers, the consumers who often frequent these restaurants for, eating out, how do they respond to this levy of a 10% of now staff contribution rather than service charge? Do they feel that it should be left as a voluntary exercise rather than a mandatory? If they're happy with the service, they can tip. If they do not want to, pay anything at all extra and beyond their actual food cost, they should not be allowed to.
Well, certainly, Samya, definitely the High Court's order is quite shocking for the consumers here. And I am present with some of them. I'll go directly to them. My first question to you is, sir, that interim order abhi aaya hai Delhi High Court se ki jo सर्विस चार्जेस है वो 10% तक ले सकते हैं रेस्टोरेंट्स. इसे आप कैसे देखते हैं? क्योंकि रेस्टोरेंट्स जो है वो काफ़ी खुश है क्योंकि बोल रहे कि स्टाफ को जो है उनका बेटर होता है अगर 10% सर्विस चार्ज वो चार्ज करते हैं. बट आप एज अ कस्टमर कैसे देखते हैं?
मैडम, एज ए कस्टमर हम तो ये देखते हैं कि भाई हमारा बिल कम से कम कैसे हो सकता है. अगर 10% भी सर्विस चार्ज लगाते हैं तो वो एक फ़िक्स होना चाहिए अमाउंट की, उससे ज़्यादा नहीं होना चाहिए. दूसरा क्या है कि स्टाफ के नाम का ओनर के पास नहीं जाना चाहिए. स्टाफ की चीज़ें तो स्टाफ को मिलनी चाहिए. उसमें स्टाफ का प्रॉपर एक स्टाफ योगदान के नाम से मेंशन होना चाहिए ताकि ये पता चले कि भाई स्टाफ को जा रहा है. हम लगता है कि भाई स्टाफ को दें, किसी और को ना दें. तो एक हमारा सहयोग रहेगा कि हम स्टाफ को दे रहे हैं जिसको जरूरत है, और जिसको जरूरत नहीं है तो उसको हम क्यों किस बात का गारंटी रहे स्टाफ को जा रहा है. मैडम,
हम आपसे पूछना चाहेंगे कि वी नो दैट ईटिंग इन दिल्ली रेस्टोरेंट इन एक्सपेंसिव रेस्टोरेंट इज ऑलरेडी द प्राइसेस आर हाई एंड अबव दैट इट हैज नाउ कम दैट 10% सर्विस चार्ज विल बी चार्ज हियर. हाउ डू यू सी इट?
ये बहुत ही गलत डिसीजन है. नाउअडेज हर किसी को ये मालूम है. हम एक तरफ तो कहते हैं महंगाई है. ऑलरेडी हम जब एक्सपेंसिव रेस्टोरेंट्स में जाते हैं तो वहाँ पे हम जीएसटी अलग से पे करते हैं. सभी चीज़ों पे हम अदर टाइप्स के टैक्सेस पे करते हैं. अब आप ये ले आते हैं कि नहीं जी 10% आप देना मतलब आप ले लो 10%. क्यों ले लो आप 10%? हम वहाँ बैठने के लिए एक नॉर्मल कोई भी चीज़ हम वहाँ लेते हैं उसका हम एम्बियंस के अकॉर्डिंग पे करते हैं, और उसके ऊपर से आप ये एक एक्स्ट्रा बर्डन. तो आप क्या चाहते हो? प्लेट और डे बाई डे एक्सपेंसिव होती चली जाए. उसके बाद सेकेंडरी बात ये आती है कि आप ये कहते हो कि अभी जैसा मैं वो एक ऑर्डर पढ़ रहा था उसमें कहा कि इसको सर्विस टैक्स की जगह ना जाके कि स्टाफ फंड समथिंग लाइक दैट कुछ कंट्रीब्यूशन कुछ कर देना चाहिए. तो फिर वो ओनर क्या कर रहा है उस रेस्टोरेंट का? क्या केवल वही प्रॉफिटेबल होगा? तो ये तो उसकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी बनती है ना. अगर हम एज ए ले मैन कोई भी वेजिटेबल किसी स्मॉल रेस्टोरेंट में लेते हैं हार्डली 200-300 रुपये की आती है, और वहीं हम एक हाई क्लास रेस्टोरेंट में जाते हैं तो वहाँ पे 1000-1200 रुपये हम ऑलरेडी पे करते हैं. राइट? जब ऑलरेडी वी आर पेइंग फॉर दैट, उसके बाद आप हमसे फिर कह रहे हैं कि 10% आप और दे दीजिए. ये बिल्कुल गलत है. ये नहीं होना चाहिए. और मैं कोर्ट से भी रिक्वेस्ट करूँगा, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट से भी रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि प्लीज़ इसके अंदर कुछ करें, और होटल फेडरेशन भी इसके अंदर कुछ करे. इस तरह की और ज़्यादा बोझ पब्लिक पे ना डालें.
So certainly, Sami, as you heard, the people here, the customers here, they say, that no further burden should be put on the customers, whether it is, the contribution of staff, the profit of the staff, that should be the responsibility of the owners, because the customers here, the public here, they're already paying much more when they go to eat in an expensive restaurant. Over to you.
Absolutely, Ishika, and that is predominant sentiment of the people at large, as the call-in lines are also open right now. Do call us in and share your views, whether at all you agree with the Delhi High Court's order that a 10% cap on a service charge, now called staff contribution, should be levied, or should it be left at the disposal of the consumer? Whether he is happy with the service, he can go ahead and make a tip, and if he is not happy, then he should not be compelled. And right now I'm joined by our caller. Mr. Vineet is calling us in from Jammu. Mr. Vineet, good afternoon. Please go ahead and share your views. Okay, that line seems to have gotten disconnected. My guest still continues to be with us, Mr. Vineet Vadhva. I will come back to you. Mr. Vadhva, you just heard the sentiment of the consumer. You also heard what Mr. Bijon Mishra had to say, Mr. Vadhva. What is your take on it? Because you are coming from the other end of the spectrum. How do you see this Delhi High Court order? And also kindly break it down for us as to which are the restaurants this is going to be applicable at.
Well, first of all, my humble thanks to the Honorable Court for appropriately taking a corrective and a cure to an unnecessary consumer confusion that has been plaguing for the last couple of months or years. And this brings actually this brings everything very transparent. And our industry has never been truly represented in the government. So we have been at the wrath of whether it's a consumer or it is bodies or it is courts. It's never that we have a true representation in the government. To begin with, I would say that, first of all workers, we all working in this industry work in reverse to the human clock. When we work, the world enjoys and rests. No one in this industry hits the pillow before 2 a.m. each day, 300 days a year. This industry is very, very different from the other industries. It definitely needs to be gratified. It's an industry globally that is receiving a gratuity. Whether the term is a service charge or
absolutely,
a
Mr.
staff,
Vadhva. I will have to interject over there. Hold that thought, Mr. Vadhva. I will come back to you as I have a caller calling us in from Chennai, MG Pillai, and after that I will let you complete that point you were making, Mr. Vineet Vadhva. Mr. Pillai, good afternoon. Please go ahead and share your views. You're calling us in from Chennai.
Very good afternoon. I have to make 2 points. Number one, the welfare of the staff is the primary duty of the owner. And I don't see any reason why the customer should be forced to do that. Number two, I'm very surprised at the consumer activist who says that it is a good thing. I mean, this is something that should be done by the owner, not by us. If you extend this logic, in every government department I go for somewhere, they should start telling me that for their salaries, you guys have to give some money. This is not done. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Pillai, thank you for making a point over there. And Mr. Vadhva was mentioning his side of the story. Mr. Vadhva, you just heard what Mr. Pillai also had to say, that it essentially becomes the responsibility of the owner to ensure that the well-being of their staff, their waiters, the people who are working with him. Well, we have another caller calling us in. Mr. Deepak Mishra is calling us from the national capital. Mr. Mishra, yes, please go ahead and make your point.
Yeah, as a consumer, what I feel, this is another kind of tax. You are already paying GST, you are already paying VAT, and you are paying the higher prices for the expensive restaurants. See, it is the owner whose responsibility lies with the workers in the restaurants. He is supposed to pay the EPF. He is supposed to take care of their welfare. For all these contributions, he is already charging the customer in the prices. Now, paying service charge and staff contribution is something which is very awkward. Just say this is another tax. Why burden the consumer with the tax which is named something different? Just because it's not going to the government. And I'm sure that it will definitely not go to the beneficiaries, the restaurant workers. Something will be pocketed somewhere else. So this is not done. This is not acceptable for me, at least. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mishra, for sharing your views over here with us. I will come back to you, Mr. Vadhva. You just heard what Mr. Pillai and Mr. Mishra had to say. They're calling us from different parts of the country, one from Chennai, one from the national capital. They feel that the well-being, the EPF, the upkeep and the maintenance of the restaurant and their staff is essentially the responsibility of the owner of the given restaurant. Why should the consumer be burdened with yet another tax? They're already paying for the food, they are paying for the GST, they are paying for the VAT also in many cases. Then why have this additional burden that the consumers have to pay, Mr. Vadhva?
I think that the consumer has never had a better time than what they are seeing today. With the Zomatos of the world, with the Swiggies of the world, the discount is only a click away. There is not a single consumer who is conscious about paying is not going in through a Zomato or a Swiggy, number one. Number two is that today's consumer, especially in this part of the globe, is extremely demanding. He is unwavering. He is not ready to compromise on anything. And therefore, the standards have to be kept absolutely very high. The staff is not easy to come by. It is not easy to pick a person from the street and start making him work on the table. There's a great amount of training that gets involved. There's a great contribution of the whole industry which makes any unit strong. There is a lot of back ending that happens. It's not just the front. It is not about buying things 200 rupees a kilo and why they are selling it at 1,000 rupees a kilo. No, it doesn't work like that. The food cost is primarily between 20
No, we
to
agree with you on that
25%
front, Mr. Vadua, that the
of
restaurant owners also incur a lot of cost. And when it comes to training these staff at the restaurant, that itself is going to amount for something. But it eventually comes down to the fact that the consumer has to bear the brunt. If they want to experience life beyond Zomato and Swiggy and go into a restaurant, I will come back to you, Mr. Vadua. I have another caller calling us in from Chennai. Mr. Narayan is calling us from Chennai. Mr. Narayan, good afternoon. Please go ahead and share your views.
Good afternoon to all the Mirror News viewers. See, what Mr. Vadva is saying, I'm totally not accepting, because the food and beverage industry, they make a major profit, like 40 to 50%. If they want to take care of the staff, yeah, let them partake from the profit, not the pass the buck on the customers. Already the customers, the consumers are burdened with so many taxes. GST is there. Even if I go and cut my hair in a normal salon, they charge a GST. Why I have to pay for the restaurant? Anyway, I don't agree with Mr. Vadva's agreement with the statement saying there are so many people, there are so many employees in BPOs, okay, service centers. They are all working round the clock. They are working, they are open, they are awake round the clock. Okay, and those people, they are not taking any service charges. They are all taken care by the employers. Under the circumstances, the additional burden of the employee contribution or a staff contribution in whichever name they use, it is not at all acceptable. Thank you.
Absolutely, Mr. Narayan. Thank you for taking our time and calling us over here at Mirror Now. Do call us in. Our call-in lines are open right now. The numbers are flashing on your screen. Let me also go across to Mr. Bijon Mishra, who still continues to be with us. Mr. Bijon Mishra, a few of our callers did not agree with you. They didn't identify with your thought where you said this is a welcome move, because they feel that eventually it's the restaurant owner whose responsibility it is to ensure the well-being of their staff, that they are looked after, well paid for that matter, because the consumer invariably is paying for a lot than what he has essentially ordered on his plate. How do you respond to that, Mr. Bijon Mishra?
Thank you, Samia. You have given me an opportunity to bring clarity in my communication. You see, the court, the Honorable High Court, has very clearly mentioned that the contribution will be a voluntary initiative by the customer. It has never said in the order that it is to be made mandatory, the 10% has to be paid. It has said that the Federation should develop a mechanism to develop a kind of a gratis, which if I am happy with the service and I wish to contribute towards the welfare of that customer, of the employee who has served me, I would definitely like to pay for his welfare as a nice gesture for the great service I got from him. Of course, he gets all what he deserves to get as amenities as an employee, but everywhere in every country there is something called a bonus, and that bonus comes out of either a profitability ratio or it comes out of the employer being happy with the performance of the company. So here the consumer is given an option. It is not mandatory. I think even your reporter did not ask that right question, that it is not mandatory. The court is not saying that all the customers have to pay 10%. No, sorry. The court is not saying that. The court is saying develop a transparent mechanism where if I, Bijon Mishra, as a customer, want to pay a gratis to the person who has served me and I feel happy about it, I would like to pay something extra to him for his welfare. And nobody should stop me from not doing that as a customer. Because at many places, where a customer goes, many places where I can list you so many places where I visit, I give a gratis because I feel happy to give that. It's not compulsory. It is voluntary. So let's not stop our gesture which we want to project towards a good service, which will motivate the industry to grow, motivate the staff to play a good customer-centric role. I would like to see those changes happening in my country, like in other countries. So why should the customer feel the court is thrusting something? No, the court is not thrusting it on you. It is on you to agree to pay or not to pay. But if you pay, then there is a transparent mechanism that money will go towards the welfare of that staff who has served you, and you have felt happy
and it's a lot to do with the mechanism over here, like you were mentioning, Mr. Bijon Mishra, sir, that the Restaurant Association will have to chalk out their own strategy and put a mechanism in place that is going to be transparent enough to ensure that if at all a contribution is made in this nature, it eventually goes to the staff as a beneficiary and nowhere else. Well, I have paucity of time over here. I will have to wrap this conversation. Thank you so much, Mr. Vineet Wadhwa and Mr. Bijon Mishra, for taking our time and joining us over here. We also have my colleague Dhriti, who has spoken to the NRAI treasurer of the National Restaurant Association of India. Let's listen into that conversation.
Sir, what do you think about this order by the High Court? Like they have, in a way, sided with the Restaurant Association. So what do you think about this?
Well, I think it's a very good order because a contribution to service charge is very important, especially a country like India, because most of the people who are working with us are, this is their mainstay, and this is what they earn. This is why they work so much for this. So I think it's a great idea to limit it to 10% because this is also normal what most of the restaurants are charging. Very few restaurants are charging more than this. So I think 10% is a very good percentage to charge. And this will, of course, be very good because it will be all distributed to the staff members and they get a better earning every month.
So, sir, also, if the people, the consumers, they will say that they have to pay an extra charge above the food they are already paying for. So what do you think about that? What is your response to that?
Well, as I said, that this goes directly to the staff. If we include it in our food menu and the rates are increased accordingly, then like service charge is not charged on home delivery, then even home delivery will become more expensive because our basic rates will be higher. Also, when we are giving commission to landlords, then this is something we'll have to give commission on this also. So this entire income, this particular income will be reduced by the amount of commission that we are giving to the landlords.
And with that, we're slipping into a short break right now. Lots more lined up. Stay tuned and keep watching Mirror Now for more news and updates.